One of the ways to really, assess, like, am I in kind of an insecure attachment based relationship versus one with connection, that's connection and stable, is ask yourself.
On Stories of Self, we go on journeys into the lives of ourselves and others. We see how stories connect, how they diverge, and how we can create our worlds and solve our problems. This is the real-life remix of storytelling, which is so often stranger than fiction. So come and sit around the fire, chill by the ocean, or get a coffee with me, as I delve into the stories of self that make, break, and remake us. Some stories are dramatic, some are serene, some will magically mirror you, and some will be delightfully different. I'm your host, Katie Reeve-Arnold, and this is Stories of Self. Hi, everybody. So welcome to Stories of Self. And today we've got Kait Melendy joining us. Kait is a mental health therapist, author, and coach. And she has lots of fantastic experience working in a clinical setting before she set sail from that life. And she sailed into a new existence where she's helping people in a whole new way, bringing everything from the past with her in all her experience. And so this is just wonderful to have her here today. Welcome, Kait.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here.
Brilliant. So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about the falling in love with an illusion. We don't always fall in love with the person that's in front of us. Sometimes we paint onto that person all the things that we want them to be. And it's understandable in some ways, but in other ways, it really holds us back. It's a self-sabotage mechanism for the entire relationship. So, yeah, I thought that's what we'd chat about today. What about you? Do you feel that you've ever fallen in love with an illusion rather than the person who was right there?
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I do believe that people and the world around us are simply projections of ourselves and how we view the world based on our own belief systems and interpretations of what we witness around us, right? So that's definitely, I think, a trap that a lot of people fall into, and certainly that I have in the past as well.
Yeah, I have as well. I've definitely searched for things and looked to find them in people and kind of, I guess, found them whether they were there or not. And I guess that relates to having things in my life, in my past, that I'm seeking to be supported with. But actually kind of wanting someone else to do it instead of supporting myself. So this is more how I used to be than how I am right now. But I think it's a really common issue. We want someone to be our other half, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that concept is almost like romanticized, right? Like everyone wants to find their other half. People write about it, people sing about it. But then when you start deconstructing what that looks like and what that actually means, is like, is this actually healthy though when we're searching for our other half in someone else instead of creating that within ourselves, right? It's almost like filling a void within ourselves through someone else. And when we enter into relationships with that idea, that's what causes a lot of chaos in relationships and generally leads to toxic relationships.
Yeah, that's really wise. It's really is romanticized. Songs and movies and, everything we read. It's that idea of, I think the idea that's knocking around a lot at the moment is the idea of a twin flame. And the idea that you can't burn bright and you can't be whole in your own right. It sounds a bit warped, even when you start to really think about it. You start to get into the realms of things like depending on others rather than depending on yourself. And so we enter that kind of toxic relationship you spoke about, like codependency and things like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that concept of the twin flame, because I feel like now as general society is raising in consciousness and we're hearing these terms more and more, like soulmates and twin flames and I've been reading a lot of research on the twin flames and kind of the flip side of that. And when you apply the psychological lens to it and like the concept of attachment theories, essentially the twin flame relationship is an avoidant person and an anxious person coming together.
Wow. And that's really, so yeah, as you said about the attachment theory. So the idea of having those attachment theory, attachment elements that of us that are based on our upbringing and based upon issues that have come in through our life that we're carrying with us, and we carry them into relationships. Then obviously the idea that these two kind of combine together in this almost magnetic sense, but it's not necessarily a healthy magnetism. There
Oh,
might be something to
exactly.
learn from each other or something to guide from each other, but it won't necessarily be peaceful or a good relationship in that way.
Yeah, and I would see this in my work all the time with clients because what the statistics show is that 50% of society are actually in insecure attached relationships, right? So when you look at attachment style, there's the four different types of attachment, right? So you have avoidant, anxious, ambivalent, and then securely attached. So only 50% of the population are actually securely attached, whereas the other 50% are in insecure relationships, right? So in my work with clients, this dynamic would come up all of the time. And generally, what I would notice is the avoidant and the anxious tend to attract each other.
It's really interesting, isn't it? So we're really trying to heal ourselves by locking onto somebody that we think can heal us. But actually, often that person is a mirror of an issue we've had in the past, oftentimes with family or that kind of thing. But any issue that we've had in the past, we can then seek that into our future relationships. So we're kind of self-perpetuating our issue there, hey?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, attachment issues stem from childhood, right? So, as children, we all have needs that we need to have met. And generally, this comes from our primary caregivers. But if those needs aren't met from our primary caregivers, they never go away. They still live within us. We grow up and we become adults, and we still have those needs that we did as children. And we tend to search for them in other people. A lot of the time, that happens to be our romantic relationships because it's usually in our closest relationships that we want to have our needs met, right? So we're, as adults now, we're still trying to heal the wounds that we had as children, and we're looking for our partner to fulfill that need, right? And to meet that void within us. And when that doesn't happen, that's generally when a lot of conflict begins, right? And you have that toxic pattern.
Yeah, so there's that pattern of each person kind of having an issue in their own past. So it's the inner child of one person having an argument with the inner child of the other person, really, rather than the two adults meeting. And so even that initial kind of spark or flame, if you like, can kind of turn into something that's a bit more dark and twisted if we haven't already spent some time working on our own issues. Then what is actually mine or what is actually theirs becomes ours as we see it, when it's not necessarily really.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of the time, people aren't actually showing up as their adult self in their relationships. Like you said, when there's a wound within us that gets triggered, we tend to project that onto our partner and believe that they are the cause of it, whereas they're actually the symptom. The wound sits within us, right? And it's something that we need to heal, but we tend to blame our partners for being the cause of it, but really they're the symptom, right? And this is when you see, I have a lot of clients say, why do I always attract this kind of person? Or why do I always attract cheating men? Or why do I always attract men who are emotionally unavailable, right? So again, this is a wound that sits within us, right? So no matter what relationship you're in, no matter who you meet, you're constantly going to have that issue because it's not about the other person, it's about us.
Yeah, so that's that point where I found quite a lot of positivity for myself by looking at things where I'm assessing that when something's happening, I'm either getting what I want or I'm getting a lesson that I need to get towards what I want. Because I think sometimes we can feel that life is happening against us. And I definitely felt that a lot in the past. And it's not a very productive way to feel. It's very restrictive. It makes life feel like a jail. So instead, this kind of opens you up to going like, I'm either going to get what I want or I'm going to get a lesson that's going to help me get what I want in future. So that's that repeated lesson that we're getting by attracting the same person over and over. And the answer is learn the lesson, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And as soon as that lesson is learned, you notice the problem disappears. The relationships shift, who you're attracting shifts, who you form relationships with shifts, right? But it's true. It's like, I really believe that life and are the relationships we form, they're all here to teach us a lesson about ourselves, right? And once we learn that lesson, it goes away. The problem is a lot of people don't learn the lesson and they repeat it and repeat it. And they find themselves in these perpetual relationships where it's the same issues over and over. And I almost view it as like a video game, right? Like when we were younger, we would play video games and it's like you would pass the test and then you move to the next level. Right. But some people, it takes a long time to pass the test. So the longer you can like step back from a relationship after it ends, or even when you're still in it, and be like, what is this trying to teach me? Why am I feeling so triggered right now? Where is the root of this coming from? And 99% you'll realize it's not about the partner or the person you're with. It's about something within you. Right.
Noticing that your couple's issues, are they actually a couple's issue, or are they rooted in a singular issue that one person, without any projecting any blame onto each other, ideally, but, having a singular issue? So can you describe a little bit the attachment styles, just so that people can know to look out for things in their own lives?
Yeah. So secure attachment is generally people, they're in a relationship, but it's not codependent and they're happy to be on their own as well. Anxious attachment is someone who is constantly insecure. And these are the people who may be calling you every 20 minutes, right? It's almost like the clingy people, right? And then you have avoidant attachment, which is someone, once they get too close in the relationship, these are the people that tend to run away. Right. And then you have the ambivalent ones, and these are the very hot and cold, like they're close 1 minute and then you don't hear from them for a week. So it's like that hot and cold.
So the clinging and the running are kind of getting attracted towards each other, and it's pulling them both apart, really, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people, they grew up kind of with that chaos, right? And they see it as like excitement. So people who have this, insecure attachment, they're so used to it. They don't know what it's like to be in a calm relationship. So they may actually enter into a relationship that's calm, but they're so uncomfortable with it because they've never been exposed to that they sometimes subconsciously will create chaos in the relationship because that's all they know, right? That's what they're used to.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that one, because I think, and again, it's in the media, it's in the films we watch. That idea of butterflies in your stomach, that idea of that anxiousness, that wanting to see somebody. And it's very difficult to balance up a true want to see somebody with this kind of repetition of things being held back from you. So you were kind of anxious for them as a child, maybe. I think a lot of people just don't know how to judge between the two. So as you said, they're experiencing all these actually quite negative emotions, but they're seeing them as excitement rather than the fact that they're actually just fearful this person's never going to call them again.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the ways to really, assess, like, am I in kind of an insecure attachment based relationship versus one with connection, that's connection and stable, is ask yourself, is this relationship hot and cold? Like, is it lots of ups? Is it lots of downs? Is it a roller coaster? After every disagreement, do I think about breaking up with the person? Or do I see this as something that can be resolved, something we can work through it? Right. So all of these questions or signs is like, is this actually attachment, or is this actually a healthy connection that I have?
And I'm guessing, are you, asking yourself, am I having the same argument, the same issue? Are we having the same argument, the same issue on repeat over and over? Are we actually solving the things that come up in discussion between us? or are we just having the one argument over and over? Because that can be very exhausting. And I think,
Exactly. And yeah, and also, is this an issue in my past relationship?
mm,
Or are these issues in my past relationships? And if they were, am I repeating cycles that I need to work on as an individual? Or why am I attracting these same relationships over and over? What's going on within me that is attracting these types of people as well?
I notice, I don't know if you do as well, but I notice a lot of people who say to me that they think they need couples therapy when they actually
Mhm.
start to open up about what's going on with them. What they actually need is one or both of them needs individual therapy first before, or individual coaching or some kind of individual venture into what's going on in their lives
Mhm.
before they can get into the looking at it as a couple, because their issues aren't based on them as a couple. And so that's not to say that they might not have couples issues underneath that then, or on top of all of that then. But yeah, I see them trying to solve the superficial issues that they see within the couple without
Yeah.
trying to solve their own issues.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I used to do couples counseling as well. And I would see this a lot is like when you started peeling back the layers, even with the couple, it was always rooted to past experiences. Right. It
Mm,
was always rooted to childhood that their partner did something that triggered something and it reminded them of when they were young.
mm,
Right. So it does always go back to us. And what I would say to couples is like sometimes I would have an individual come to me and they would say, I'm having trouble in my relationship, but I feel like I need to work on myself first. And 100% I support that because they do need to work on themselves. And then sometimes I would say you can also go to couples therapy as well, right? Like you can do the individual work and you can do the couples work, even if it's just working on communication as a couple with the therapist there as a third party can be helpful. But again, that's more like developing a skill, whereas you also need to look at the root cause of where these triggers are coming from, right? So I think both can actually be helpful, right? You can also do both at the same time.
that's beautiful. And the thing is, at the end of that, you're actually going to work on yourself to become a healthier person so that you can have better relationships. So that instead of dragging a half version of yourself into a relationship looking for somebody to make you whole, you're actually bringing a whole version of yourself and they're bringing a whole version of themselves, ideally. And then together you are even more, and that's what we're all actually looking for, is that expansion of both being whole and being even more together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Instead of trying to fill a void within yourself, you learn to address it individually and then you show up fully for your partner. So it's two full beings coming together to add to each other's life rather than coming together to try to fill voids in each other's life. And that's literally the difference between a healthy partnership and an unhealthy one.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining us today. As I said, Kate's an author as well, and she's got a fantastic book out where she discusses all sorts of things about life and relationships and healing and everything. Do you want to give us a little intro there?
Yeah, so this is my book. It's my first book, Wanderlust Healing. I'm actually working on a second book as well on attachment. So, but we can talk about that in another podcast.
Oh,
So,
that's
this one is
beautiful.
Wanderlust Healing. This is about my own healing and spiritual journey from living a life that potentially, I don't think was meant for me, to actually finding my own unique path outside of societal expectations and what I felt was expected of me. So if you're looking for a good read related to travel, healing, spirituality, this literally combines all three of those elements. It's available on Amazon, so you can order it on your Amazon marketplace.
Beautiful, fantastic. And if people want to get in touch with you, maybe to talk about anything, what is your website?
Yeah, so my website is katemelendy.com, and you can also feel free to send me a message on Instagram as well. So my Instagram is Kait Melendy.
Fantastic, Kate. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely chat again because I know we've got so many interesting things to talk about together. Take
Yes.
care and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are all telling our stories, and we are all telling ourselves stories about it all. Are you brave enough to walk with me into hearing, considering, and understanding the stories we tell? Join me next time, where we'll be considering more stories and illusions and stepping into creating the freedom we desire. Every moment, we are who we are choosing to be. You choose. Choose you, because your story matters.